Hola chicos, hola, hola. Hoy vamos a hablar del subjuntivo. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little introduction of why we use the subjunctive and how to conjugate the subjunctive. We're not going to get too in depth about going into like complete sentences using the subjunctive quite yet, but I just want to show you at least how to conjugate it. So, first of all, so far in Spanish, you have learned verb tenses that are in what's called the indicative mood. So that's like present tense, preterite tense, imperfect tense, future conditional. All of that is considered the indicative mood. It's used to express factual information, certainty, and objectivity. Okay, objectivity meaning you don't have a stance. You're not showing any type of bias or opinion on the topic. Okay, so for example, I went to the store. That's just factual information. The subjunctive mood, on the other hand, is used to express things like doubt, uncertainty, and subjectivity. Okay, so anytime you're showing a doubt in a sentence or you're uncertain of something or you're showing a bias, you're being subjective about something, you will need to use the subjunctive mood. Okay. So just some more examples of the indicative. John goes to the store. I know that John goes to the store. There is no doubt that John goes to the store. Okay, those are all examples of factual sentences. The subjunctive would look something like this. I want John to go to the store. That doesn't mean he's going to go, but I want him to go. I hope that John goes to the store. It is possible that John will go to the store. It is good that John goes to the store. So here I'm showing subjectivity. Okay. It is important that John goes to the store. So notice that all of those have kind of two parts. I want that John goes to the store. I hope that John goes to the store. It is possible that John will go to the store. So they all have some sort of clause at the beginning, followed by another subject and another verb. Okay, so every subjunctive sentence has to look like that. Whereas in the indicative, you can just say, John goes to the store. There's only one verb in there. Okay, but with the subjunctive, you're always going to have two parts. So that's important to keep in mind. Okay, so the subjunctive cannot exist alone. This is sort of what I was just saying. It is always part of the sentence, and it will always be connected by something. Typically, it's going to be connected by the word K. Okay, K in the middle of the sentence. And remember, K in English means that. So to give you an example of an indicative sentence that has two parts, he knows that I cook well. Él sabe que yo cocino bien. So since there's no doubt in this sentence, because you're saying he knows something for a fact, he knows that I cook well, we just use the normal present tense form of the verb. But down below, you'll see in this subjunctive sentence, es dudoso que yo cocine bien. So now you're starting the sentence with some doubt. It is doubtful that I cook well. So you'll notice that this conjugation of cocinar looks a little bit different. Okay, and I'll show you how that form of cocinar is formed. But it's also important to keep in mind that you're going to have some conjugating at the beginning of the sentence. And this beginning part of the sentence is going to use the indicative. So it's going to use what you have learned up to this point. It's the second half, the subjunctive half of the sentence, that's using this new conjugation. Okay, so we'll worry more about that later. But ¿cómo se forma el subjuntivo? How do we form the subjunctive? Here are just some examples of verbs that have been conjugated to the subjunctive already. So I just want you to take a look at these verbs. You could even pause the video for a second and just try to figure out if you see any commonalities or see if you can figure out how these verbs might be formed. So you've got comas, vea, estudiemos, corran, descansen, pongamos, sirva, nieva, hables, tenga. Okay, so let's take a look at the steps. How are we going to form this? So your first step to forming the present subjunctive is to conjugate the verb in the yo form of the present tense. Okay, we should add that into your notes. Conjugate the verb into the yo form of the present tense. And I think in your notes you have 3 steps. So step 2 would be drop the O from the yo form. And then step 3, add the opposite ending. Okay, so when I say opposite ending, if you take a look down here, with AR verbs, you'll notice that normally your endings are o, as, a, amos, an. So notice now we're using ER endings for AR verbs. Okay, and then you'll also notice that the yo form is no longer an O. The yo form is going to be the same as the LA usted form. Okay, so your new AR verb endings are a, amos, en. And then ER-IR verb endings are going to be opposite endings, so you'll use AR endings for ER-IR endings. So now we have a, as, a, amos, an. Okay, so that's a little confusing for people because this is the opposite of what you have learned up until now. But it is important that you start with the yo form because remember we have all of those verbs that have irregular yo forms. So if I back up for a second, for example, the verb tener, okay, the yo form of tener is tango. So notice what we've done here. We've dropped the O from tango and added the opposite ending. So if it's an ER verb, we're going to use AR endings. So the ella form of tener in the subjunctive is tenga. Okay, so that's why it's so important to start with the yo form. Same thing here, pongo. We drop the O and add amos. Okay, so just to give you another example. Here's an indicative sentence. Yo tengo mis llaves. I have my keys. Okay, the second sentence says, hopefully, ojalá que yo tenga mis llaves. So hopefully is showing some doubt, some uncertainty. Hopefully I have my keys. Now notice this tener form is in the subjunctive. Okay, so since we have to start with the yo form, let's review some of those irregular yos. So I'm just going to have you copy those into your packet, please. I'm going to keep going, but you can pause the video. There are also, of course, some irregulars to be worried about. So here's our first irregular, and there are not too many. Ir, to go, is vaya, vayas, vaya, vayamos, and vayan. And that's the whole conjugation. Those are not just endings, that's the whole thing. No accents on that. Ser, to be, looks like this. It looks like see, sees, see, seemos, Sean. But it's pronounced sea, 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 seamos, and sean. And then estar is really only irregular because you'll notice that it gets some accents on the endings. Okay, everything except nosotros gets an accent. So esté, estés, esté, estemos, estén. Okay, and then same thing with dar. Dar is going to get some accents on the yo form and the la usted form. And that's because we know that day by itself without an accent means of or from. So we have to kind of differentiate there. So de, des, de, demos, den. So otherwise dar is just a regular verb. I guess the other reason is that we're not starting with the yo form here because the yo form of dar is doi. Okay, saber, sepa, sepas, sepa, sepamos, and sepan. Okay, the other sort of irregularity is with kargar-zar verbs. Okay, so your kargar-zar rules are still going to apply here. So let's just take a look at an example. If you had apagar, we'd go to the yo form, which is apago, but then we have to use opposite endings. Okay, so if I have an AR verb here, I would be using an E ending. And remember from the preterite a little bit, if you were to put an E at the end of this, it would be pronounced apahe because the G next to an E turns into like an H sound, and they want to keep that hard G sound. So instead of apahe, they change it to GUE. Okay, so for any kargar-zar verbs, you're going to see that kege se ending. Okay, and M-Pesar kind of gives us a little bit of a segue into stem changing verbs. So you can see that stem changing verb rules are still going to apply here, and we're going to take a closer look at those. Okay, so there's a couple different ways to do stem changing verbs. We've got stem changing verbs that end in AR and ER, and then we have stem changing verbs that end in IR. So stem changing verbs that end in AR and ER are still going to take the stem change everywhere except for nosotros. So they're going to follow your typical stem changing verb rules, like the boot verb rules, and they're going to do the same stem change that you're used to everywhere except for nosotros. Okay? And then you just have to remember to use your opposite ending. So there's some more examples. With IR verbs, you're going to do a little bit different of a stem change. So verbs that change from O to UE are going to change O to UE everywhere except for nosotros, where they change O to U instead. And then IR verbs that are E to IE verbs are going to change E to IE everywhere except for nosotros, where they change E to I. Okay, so they drop the E only in the nosotros form. So you'll notice durmamos and sintamos. Okay, and then verbs that stem change from E to I keep the stem change in all forms. So you'll notice we're still doing that E to I change everywhere. Okay, I'm going to do the wedding abbreviation with you on a different video, so that is all for today. And we're going to do a little practice with this. So if you have any questions, it might be a good idea to just rewatch this video. I'll put some additional videos up on Google Classroom as well. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you have questions. Adios!